The Karma Kagyu lineage is one of the 4 major schools of Mahayana Buddhism in Tibet. The other 3 are the Nyingma, the Sakyapa, and the Kadampa, later called the Gelugpa. All 4 share the same basic teachings of the Buddha and have the same objective of bringing all beings to enlightenment. The only differences lie in the historical founders of each lineage and techniques toward enlightenment. Kagyu emphasizes meditation and daily activities rather than intellectual study, as well as the strength of the guru-disciple relationship, which can bring ordinary beings to enlightenment in one lifetime. A lineage of direct oral transmission, it is sometimes called the oral or the perfection school. It is also sometimes called the whispering lineage, because this continuum of verbal transmission only occurs through a select number of high-caliber students. The methods of this lineage were designed for lay people and yogis. Depicted here is the golden Kagyu garland. This refers to the masters who maintain the lineage, karmapas and their most important students. Lineage holders are always directly selected by karmapas to ensure that the teachings remain intact and pure. To investigate the foundation of this lineage, let's explore its origins by looking at the early Kagyu masters, including Tilopa, Naropa, Marpa, Milarepa, Gampopa, and the first Karmapa. Let's start with Tilopa, a renowned yogi who lived from 988 to 1069 AD. He was born into a Brahmin family in East India. At an early age, he met Nagarjuna, who used his magic to make Tilopa ruler of one of the many kingdoms of India. Tilopa eventually tired of his royal duties, however, and became a monk. One day, a Dakini, or female guardian of esoteric teachings or female wisdom giver, appeared and offered him a path to true enlightenment. She initiated him into the Chakra Samvara Tantra, which he was able to fully comprehend. He practiced these teachings for 12 years. He was expelled from the monastery for taking a yogini, or female practitioner, as his consort to practice union yoga. After his expulsion, Tilopa traveled throughout India, receiving instructions from many accomplished teachers, especially from the Buddha Vajrayana, the celestial Buddha who symbolizes the ultimate mind. From these teachings, he eventually attained enlightenment. He spent the rest of his life teaching the wisdom that he had gained. Tilopa received the 4 special transmissions and mastered them. The first one came from Nagarjuna. It consisted of 2 tantras and incorporated the practices of illusory body and transference. The second one came from Nakpopa. It included the practice of conscious dreaming, or dream yoga. The third, from Lawapa, included practice of clear light, or luminosity yoga, or lucidity. This includes dream and between-life yogas. The fourth one was from Khandro Kalpa Zangmo, and included practices of Tamo, or heat yoga. This literally means angry mother. Each of these 4 contains the others, and therefore each contains everything. These form the hub of the present Karma Kagyu lineage. Tilopa had many disciples, but Naropa was the one who became the next lineage holder. The 4 transmissions were given to Naropa, and systemized as the 6 yogas of Naropa, considered a central theme in the Kagyu lineage. Naropa lived from 1016 to 1100 AD. When he was born, his body bearing the marks of a future Buddha, the earth shook, many rainbows appeared, and thunder roared. He was born into a royal family and brought up to become a king, but he ended up being more inclined toward a spiritual path and intellectual studies. At the age of 8, Naropa asked permission to seek higher education. He was taught by the best teachers. He even rejected an arranged marriage to continue to pursue his studies. He later became an abbot at a nearby Buddhist university. While there, a Dakini, described as a leprous old hag with 37 ugly features, a reflection of his own 37 worldly impurities he would come to understand, appeared to him and told him that meditation was more important than philosophy, and that he should seek out Tilopa for instructions. He did what she told him, and encountered many hardships on the way. He met with Tilopa and mastered the teachings, attaining disciples of his own. Tilopa's teaching to him included the statement, "Don't look for bliss, or its opposite." Naropa reached enlightenment after mastering 12 of Tilopa's tests, and having all impurity removed from his mind, including his feeling of a need to meditate. His life is cited as an intense example of the power of faith. Naropa transmitted his knowledge to Marpa, the great translator, and our third Karma Kagyu master. Marpa lived from 1012 to 1097. He was born in south-central Tibet and embraced Buddhism at an early age. After intensive study of Sanskrit, he sold all of his possessions for gold and set out for India, dealing with dangerous travel conditions on the way, and collecting offerings for Indian masters on behalf of his people. While in Nepal, he learned more than 30 Indian dialects. He also met 2 of Naropa's disciples. They impressed him, so he decided to try and meet this Naropa for himself. Eventually he did, and became Naropa's disciple, receiving teachings from him as well as other well-known Indian masters. Naropa led him to enlightenment and then shared the contents of his mind with him. Being the first Tibetan to receive the teaching, Marpa returned to Tibet and translated the Buddhist scriptures from Sanskrit to Tibetan. This is how the Dharma was spread throughout Tibet. Marpa came to be a well-known translator and guided groups of disciples through the teachings which he had mastered. On one of his journeys from India back to Tibet, Milarepa became his disciple. Milarepa became one of Tibet's great yogis, and his life story has been called the most accessible of all the Tibetan masters. Milarepa lived from 1052 to 1135 AD. He was born in western Tibet into a rough childhood. His father died when he was very young, and he was left in the care of his aunt and uncle, who used his sister, his mother, and himself as slaves, as well as taking over the family assets. His mother became bitter, and sent him to learn magic in order to avenge these wrongdoings, threatening suicide if he did not do so. As a sorcerer, he used the magic to cause a lot of death and destruction. 25 members of his family were killed by demons he conjured. He came to regret his actions after seeing the regrets of his sorcery teacher, and decided to find a master to help him counteract the negative karma that he had accumulated. Eventually, he was sent to Marpa, who put Milarepa through years of hardship for purification of his deeds, and to prepare him for later instructions in teaching, including having to build a 9-storied tower according to Marpa's tedious specifications, and then tearing it down and rebuilding subsequent towers. Following these tasks, Marpa imparted all the teachings that he had obtained from Naropa and other masters onto Milarepa. Milarepa spent many years mastering these teachings in solitary retreat, meditating with a butter lamp on his head, unable to move until the lamp burnt out. Through his amazing diligence and faith, he attained the enlightened state in one lifetime and began to teach, becoming famous for his poetic songs and performance of miracles. Milarepa's transmission was continued by Gampopa, who lived from 1079 to 1135 AD. Gampopa was born in East Tibet. His father was a physician who wanted Gampopa to follow in his footsteps. Originally, he did. He also married and had 2 children, both of whom died of an illness in the region. While his wife was also dying of this illness, she begged him to devote his life to Buddhist practice. He became a novice monk, studying under many masters and gaining a great understanding of their teachings. He was able to meditate comfortably for many days without moving or needing food or drink. He had a vision of a ragged yogi, which uplifted him to higher states. He left everything behind to go seek out this yogi, whom he knew to be Milarepa. He felt Milarepa to be his destined teacher. After many hardships, he found Milarepa, and became the only one of his students to receive the complete Kagyu transmission from him. He then retreated into deep meditation for many years on Mount Gampo, for which he is named. He achieved enlightenment there, and soon many came to seek his advice. He was known for his deeply insightful writing, producing such practical texts as the Jewel Ornament of Liberation, which outlines the gradual path to liberation. He organized the monastic Kagyu system when he founded the first Tibetan Kagyu monastery, Dalga Gampo. He attracted many disciples, 4 of whom would later found the 4 greater branches of the Kagyu lineage. The 8 lesser divisions developed later. The 4 greater schools of the Kagyu lineage